The death of Janet Moreau. Janet Moreau was a 36-year-old wildlife photographer from Vermont who died on June 7, 2003 in Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming after approaching a female grizzly bear with cubs at close range while attempting to photograph the family group. She had been in the park for 3 days on a professional assignment and had encountered the bears near a tree line adjacent to a meadow. Park regulations require visitors to maintain a minimum distance of 100 yards from all bears and 25 yards from other wildlife. Witnesses at the scene estimated that Moreau had closed to within approximately 30 feet of the mother bear before the animal charged. She was carrying bear spray in her pack but had not removed it from its holster before approaching. A grizzly bear covering 30 feet takes under 2 seconds. There is no functional response time for a human being in that situation, regardless of preparation. The bear struck her once and retreated after determining she was no longer a threat to her cubs. The single contact was sufficient. Moreau was airlifted to a hospital in Jackson, but died during surgery. Park rangers noted afterward that a group of other photographers in the meadow that morning had all maintained legal distance and captured excellent images of the same bear family without incident. Her death was among the most discussed wildlife fatality cases of that decade within professional nature photography circles and led to the publication of widely distributed distance guidelines specifically aimed at professional wildlife photographers working in federal parklands. The fall of Kyle Stocking. Kyle Stocking was a 26-year-old man from Utah in April 2015 when he fell to his death at Arches National Park in April 2015 while attempting to take a photograph near the edge of a cliff overlooking the Delicate Arch area. He was there with his wife and had been married less than a year. Witnesses reported that he had moved past a clearly marked boundary to find a better angle for the photograph. The sandstone surface near that edge is smooth and slopes almost imperceptibly toward the drop. There is little visible indication of how close the edge is until a person is already dangerously near it. Stocking lost his footing on the sloped surface and could not recover his balance. The fall was approximately 150 feet. His wife, who witnessed the fall, required extended psychological support in the months that followed. The sandstone geology of the Colorado Plateau is particularly unforgiving in this regard. The surface appears stable and walkable, but its texture provides minimal grip, and its angle near many formations is deceptive. The National Park Service added additional fencing and expanded the restricted zone at that location following the incident. Stocking's case was widely discussed in the context of social media culture and the pressure some visitors feel to capture a more compelling photograph than what the designated viewing areas allow. The death of Susan Holloway. Susan Holloway was a 32-year-old nurse from Colorado who died on September 3, 1979, on a trail in Rocky Mountain National Park after being struck by lightning during an afternoon thunderstorm. She had been hiking the flat-top mountain trail with a friend and had reached the exposed tundra section near the summit when clouds began building to the west. Her companions suggested they turn back. Holloway, who had been planning the hike for several months, wanted to reach the summit and persuaded her friend to continue for another 20 minutes. It is a decision that those who hike in the Rocky Mountain region are specifically and repeatedly warned against. Afternoon thunderstorms in that part of Colorado are not occasional weather events. They are a near daily occurrence throughout the summer months, typically developing between noon and 3 in the afternoon, with very little warning time once visible cloud formation begins. Holloway was struck on the open tundra approximately 200 meters below the summit. Her companion, who had moved slightly ahead, was knocked to the ground by the concussive force but survived with minor injuries. Holloway died before reaching a hospital. She had received no formal warning at the trailhead that morning about lightning protocols, though rangers stationed at the trail entrance had been directed to advise hikers about afternoon storm patterns. The ranger on duty that morning had not mentioned it during their entry. Following her death, the park introduced mandatory verbal lightning advisories at all several high-elevation trailheads during summer months. The death of Patrick Howell. Patrick Howell was a 27-year-old graduate student from Michigan who died on March 14, 1985, in Joshua Tree National Park in California, after becoming separated from his hiking group and spending 2 nights alone in the desert without adequate water or shelter. He had arrived at the park with 4 fellow students for a spring weekend camping trip. On the second morning, the group split temporarily to explore different sections of a boulder field, agreeing to meet back at the campsite by early afternoon. Howell took a different route back and made a navigational error that placed him on the wrong side of a long ridge. Rather than backtracking to a known point, he continued forward, assuming the campsite would appear over the next rise. It did not. By evening, he was several miles from camp in unfamiliar terrain. He had with him approximately half a liter of water and a light jacket. The desert temperature that night dropped to 38 degrees Fahrenheit. He survived the first night sheltering between 2 large boulders. His body was found on the morning of the 3rd day by a search helicopter, approximately 4 miles from the campsite. He had continued moving on the 2nd day in a direction that took him further from help. Dehydration and early-stage hypothermia in combination produce a well-documented cognitive impairment that causes affected individuals to make navigational decisions that appear logical to them but are directionally wrong. Howell had a map in his pack. He had not brought a compass. The map alone, without orientation tools, was not sufficient to save him.
The death of Raymond Chu. Raymond Chu was a 19-year-old college freshman from California who drowned on July 4, 1962 at Yosemite National Park while swimming in the Merced River near Sentinel Beach. The holiday weekend had brought an unusually large number of visitors to the valley floor, and the river was crowded with swimmers despite elevated water levels caused by late-season snowmelt. Chu entered the water with a group of friends in a section that appeared calm from the bank. The Merced River during snowmelt season carries a volume and velocity that its surface does not honestly represent. Beneath the smooth upper layer, the current runs fast and cold. Chu was a recreational swimmer of average ability who had grown up near the California coast and was accustomed to ocean swimming, which requires a very different set of instincts than fast-moving river water. He was pulled downstream within moments of entering the deeper channel. His friends attempted to follow along the bank, but the current moved faster than they could run. His body was recovered a mile downstream 3 hours later. Water temperature in the Merced during that period was approximately 48 degrees Fahrenheit, cold enough to cause significant muscle impairment within minutes of immersion. Yosemite now maintains seasonal river closure systems and posts water temperature data at major river access points, policies that were developed incrementally over the decades following multiple drowning incidents, including Chu's.